The house glowed with warmth that winter evening, wrapped in golden lights and the scent of cinnamon candles. Laughter echoed through every corner, blending with the crinkle of wrapping paper and the clinking of teacups. To anyone else, it looked like the perfect family Christmas, but to me, something felt off. I stood quietly near the doorway, holding my 8-year-old son Sami's hand. His small fingers squeezed mine with excitement, his eyes wide as he stared at the mountain of gifts stacked beneath the tree. "Mama," he whispered, tugging at my sleeve, "do you think Nana got me something big this year?" I forced a soft smile, brushing his hair back. "Of course, sweetheart, they love you." The words left my mouth, but they didn't feel true. Across the room, my sister Nadia sat comfortably on the couch. Her 3 children gathered around her like royalty. Their laughter was louder, brighter, almost demanding attention. In front of them lay dozens of beautifully wrapped boxes, ribbons shining under the lights. "I might have gone a little crazy this year," Nadia said with a proud laugh, holding up a receipt. "Over $2,300 just for the kids." My parents chuckled warmly, their faces glowing with pride. I felt invisible. Sami's grip on my hand tightened. "Mama, when do I get mine?" "Soon," I whispered, though my chest felt heavy with doubt. The gift exchange began. Nadia's kids ripped open present after present: tablets, gaming consoles, designer clothes. Each unwrapped box brought cheers, applause, and admiration. My parents watched them with sparkling eyes, soaking in every moment. We sat quietly, waiting, hoping. Then finally my mother turned toward us, almost as if she had just remembered we were there. "Oh, here you go, Sami," she said, handing him a small plastic bag, a drugstore bag, no wrapping paper. No ribbon, just thin plastic crinkling in his tiny hands. For a moment the world seemed to pause. Sami looked at me, confused, before slowly peeking inside. He pulled out a cheap coloring book and a small pack of crayons. "That's it?" he asked softly. My heart shattered. My sister glanced over, barely hiding her smirk. "He's still young," she said casually. "He doesn't need much." My parents said nothing. Not a single word. Sami nodded politely, forcing a brave little smile that broke me even more. "Thank you, Nana." He sat down quietly, clutching his small gift while the room returned to laughter and celebration, as if nothing had happened. But something had. As I watched my son shrink into silence, I felt a quiet storm rise inside me. In that moment, I made a promise I would never forget. This would be the last time anyone made my child feel like he was worth less. The drive home felt longer than usual. Streetlights passed in a slow blur, their pale glow slipping through the car windows like fading memories. Sami sat quietly in the backseat, his small drugstore bag resting on his lap. He didn't complain. He didn't ask questions. That silence hurt more than anything. "You can open your coloring book when we get home," I said gently, trying to sound cheerful. "I already looked at it," he replied softly. "It's nice, such a small word, carrying so much weight." I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my chest heavy with emotions I couldn't show him. When we reached home, Sami climbed out of the car without another word. He walked inside, placed the bag carefully on the table, and went to his room. No excitement, no laughter. Just quiet acceptance. That was what broke me. After tucking him into bed, I lingered by his door. He was already pretending to sleep, his face turned toward the wall. I knew that look. He didn't want me to see his disappointment. I closed the door slowly, my heart aching. In the kitchen, the silence felt suffocating. I sat down, staring at nothing, replaying the evening over and over again. The laughter, the gifts, the way Sami had been handed that bag like an afterthought, and the worst part. This wasn't new. I had lived this my entire life, being second, being overlooked, being less. But I had learned to ignore it, to accept it, to convince myself it didn't matter. But now it did, because it wasn't just me anymore. The next morning, my phone rang. My mother's name flashed across the screen. I hesitated before answering. "Hello? Did Sami like his gift?" she asked casually, as if nothing had happened. I closed my eyes. "He said it was nice." "Well, that's good," she replied lightly. "You know, we can't spoil every child the same way. Things are tight." A bitter feeling rose in my throat. "You spent over $2,300 100 on Nadia's kids. There was a pause. That's different, she said finally. Nadia needs more support, and I don't, I asked quietly. Silence. That silence told me everything I needed to know. I hung up slowly, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. For the first time, I saw the truth clearly. This wasn't about money. It wasn't about circumstances. It was about choice. They had chosen her, and they had never chosen me. A strange calm settled over me then, replacing the hurt. Not forgiveness, not anger, clarity. I walked to Sami's room and watched him sleep, his small face peaceful in the morning light. That's when I made a decision. If my family couldn't see his worth, then I would build a world where he never had to question it again. And this time, I wouldn't stay silent. The weeks after Christmas felt different, quieter, but somehow lighter. For the first time in years, I stopped trying. I stopped calling my parents just to check in. I stopped showing up to every family dinner where I knew we'd sit on the sidelines. I stopped chasing a kind of love that had always come with conditions. Instead, I turned my attention to the one place it truly mattered, home. Sami noticed the change before I even said a word. One Friday evening, I brought home a small pizza, a couple of sodas, and a board game I found on sale. It wasn't expensive, not even close to the kind of gifts we had seen that Christmas. But when I spread everything out on the living room floor, Sami's eyes lit up like I had given him the world. "Is this for us?" he asked, almost unsure. "Yes," I said, smiling. "Just us." That night, we laughed more than we had in months. We played games, argued over silly rules, and made up our own traditions. There were no comparisons, no expectations, just joy. And slowly, I began to see the difference. Sami wasn't quieter anymore. He wasn't watching others to measure his worth. He was just being a child. One evening, as we sat together watching cartoons, he leaned against me and said something I'll never forget. "Mama, I like our house better." I looked down at him, surprised. "Why?" "Because here," he said simply, "I feel important." His words settled deep in my heart, filling a space that had been empty for years. That was when I realized I wasn't just protecting him. I was healing myself too. Meanwhile, things outside our little world began to shift. I heard through relatives that Nadia's life wasn't as perfect as it once seemed. Her husband had lost his job, and the expensive lifestyle they had proudly displayed was starting to crumble. The big gifts stopped, the celebrations grew smaller, and just like that, the attention she had always received began to fade. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. It was her. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. "Hello," her voice wasn't the same, no confidence, no laughter. I need help," she said hesitantly. "Can you lend me some money?" For a moment, everything flashed in my mind: the Christmas night, the drugstore bag, Sami's quiet, it's nice. But I didn't feel anger. I felt something stronger. Peace. "I'm sorry," I said calmly. "I can't." There was a long silence on the other end. "You've changed," she finally said. I looked around at my small, warm home, at the life I had started to rebuild. "Yes," I replied softly, "I have. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. A year passed, and life no longer felt heavy. It felt whole. Our home wasn't filled with expensive furniture or piles of luxury gifts, but it carried something far more meaningful: warmth, laughter, and a quiet kind of peace that I had never known growing up. That Christmas, everything was different. Sami and I decorated the tree together, carefully placing each ornament like it mattered, because it did. We wrapped gifts side by side, laughing when the tape stuck to our fingers and the paper folded the wrong way. There was no pressure to impress anyone, no need to compete, just us. On Christmas morning, Sami sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at the small collection of neatly wrapped presents under the tree. His eyes sparkled with excitement I hadn't seen before, not the kind that comes from expecting something expensive, but the kind that comes from feeling truly loved. "Are these all for me?" he asked softly. I smiled. "Every single one." He opened each gift slowly, carefully, as if he wanted to hold on to the moment. A new set of art supplies, a storybook he had been asking for, a warm hoodie in his favorite color. Nothing extravagant, but everything chosen with love, And that made all the difference. "This is the best Christmas ever," he said, throwing his arms around me. I held him tightly, closing my eyes for a moment. This was what I had been fighting for, not revenge. Not validation, but peace. Later that evening, there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened it, my breath caught slightly. My parents stood there along with Nadia. They looked different. Quieter, their confidence softened by something unspoken. "We wanted to see you," my mother said gently. I stepped aside, letting them in without a word. They looked around our small living room, taking in the simple decorations, the laughter still lingering in the air. Sami sat nearby, happily playing with his new gifts, completely at ease. "He seems happy," my father said after a moment. "He is," I replied calmly. There was a pause before my mother spoke again, her voice lower this time. "We may have made mistakes." I met her eyes, steady and clear. "Yes," I said, "you did." But there was no anger left in me. No bitterness, because I no longer needed anything from them. Sami ran over and hugged me tightly. "Mama, come play with me." "I'm coming," I said, smiling. As I walked toward him, I realized something powerful. The sweetest revenge wasn't making them feel guilty. It wasn't proving them wrong. It was building a life so full of love that their absence no longer hurt. And in that moment, surrounded by laughter and light, I knew we had already won.